Well, today we have a good friend of mine, Zac Ernst, who is actually not a stranger to the Man Camp podcast. He was actually on season 3, and we told a bit of the story of Pursuit, formerly known as Savage Seals. For those of you that don't know Zac, I would encourage you to go back and listen to the previous episode. It's audio only. We're really excited. Season 4, for the first time ever, we've got video. So you get to not only hear these awesome stories, but see some of our friends. But I asked Zac to come back because this theme for season 4, The Pursuit, was inspired by my friend Zac and what he's doing with what is called Pursuit. So you're gonna hear a little bit about that, not only how it's impacting men, but actually how it's impacted my life. So just for a quick recap, Zac is in Seal Beach. I like to say you're a Renaissance man. So you surf, you paddleboard, you work out, you love to read and take long walks on the beach. He's just good at a lot of things, but he's also become a good friend. So Zac, thanks for being with us here again on the Man Camp podcast.
Yeah, it's an honor.
So what I want to do is we're going to dive into a little different take on Pursuit than we did in a previous interview, but I actually want to hear a little bit of the origin story because you've been doing this for almost 7 years or a little over 7 years. Can you just briefly tell us what led to you starting Pursuit personally? What was your journey that led to these workouts? And it's, as you're going to hear, way more than just a workout. There's a lot involved in it.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for having me. This is super fun. Yeah, we just got done with the workout this morning.
In fact, yeah. You killed me, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how it's kind of done this 180 thing where first it was very like I just wanted to stay consistent with physical fitness, and it started from the CrossFit gym that I was a part of that closed down, and I just through CrossFit I learned the value of group fitness and just how much harder that I would go and that we would encourage each other and the community element that we had. But I always, my former life I was a lifeguard in Seal Beach, and so we'd had these lifeguard workouts on the sand and in the water, and so I wanted to try to blend those two things, and if I can bring community to the beach, and actually very selfishly because I wouldn't stay consistent in doing workouts on my own. It would be a great idea. I would do it for a couple weeks, but then life or whatever happens and I just give up and get distracted, and then until I get a little fat and realize, I gotta get back out there. And then so it was this, I just wanted to create a consistency. So I just invited a couple friends to do it together, and we kind of formed it around our kids' school schedule. So like us dads can get together, do a workout before school drop-off, and then we go to school drop-off, and then we show up wet and sandy, and people are asking what we're doing, and then sure enough, other dads would join us. They'd want to come, and it just grew from there.
Yeah.
And very quickly we discovered it became very purposeful, much more than staying trim and fit, but it became this community, and most importantly, we saw, just organically, as guys do, we're talking about life, and then we picked up this book called Day of War.
Yes.
It's a historic fiction book about the life of David. It's amazing, just a really great book. But we did have one friend who was an atheist, and he kind of jumped into our workout, and then we were all talking about this book. And he felt kind of left out, and so he ended up getting the book and read it and caught up to us without us knowing. And one day he just showed up and started, chirping in on where we were, and we're like, "Oh, Joe, cool, you're reading." And then towards like the end of the, this is probably a couple months is all really. We get done with this long run, swim, run, and Joe comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, baptize me."
Come on.
And it was this moment of like, what? You want me to baptize you? And I've never baptized anybody at that point, but I was like, okay, let's do it. So all the guys gathered around, and we took Joe in the water, and he committed his life to Jesus, and we baptized him then and there. And at that moment, I felt like God was on it, and I was like, man, there's something here, something much more than just a workout.
Yeah.
And that was the genesis, really.
And there was also something in your own life personally, besides fitness, You have this thing that you kind of stumbled across, I think, or discovered, is doing hard things personally, or challenges that began to shape a lot of what you went after in this group and community. So it was fitness, and then community, and men, and all this. But share a little bit about the individual piece of, the marathon, the paddleboard, like these things that actually opened up something for you that is a big part of Pursuit.
Yeah. I think this idea. So what you're talking about is doing hard things, and not actually bringing life, and getting comfortable doing being uncomfortable. And so you mentioned the paddle. That I think it was after the paddle that I really started leaning more into this concept, this idea of, man, life is, we're intoxicated with comfort in our modern culture, and it's costing us something. And so I wanted to come up with a way for myself personally to push against it, and to see what's on the other side of discomfort. And it all started from desire. So specifically with the paddle, so I live in Seal Beach. 26 miles away is an island called Catalina, and it's called the channel between Seal Beach and California coastline and Catalina. And I've always just wanted to cross that thing. I've heard about people doing rock to rock, which is the tip of Catalina to San Pedro.
Yeah.
It's like a 21-mile paddle, I believe. But I was like, how cool would it be just to like pull up on our shore, and so I trained for, went and got a long open water stand-up paddle, and started training for 6 months, and found some guy to drop us off on a boat and in Catalina. And then I just started paddling back. And
how long did it take you?
It took 6.5 hours.
Wow. Was it hard?
Like nonstop. It was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Wow.
Yeah. It was the most euphoric thing, most like God dependent thing.
Yeah.
Physically, mentally, emotionally, and that I'd ever done up to that point. And it really crystallized this idea of like actually getting into, I feel like what a lot of our ancestors understood was just true dependence on God, like for food, for like shelter, like, okay, how help me survive, Father. Like today we don't have that.
It's life or death.
Life or death.
Yeah.
Today we don't have that, right? And it's almost in a weird way, we to find that dependency on God, we have to go find that, And so this was my way of really wanting to get into my body, get into creation, and get connected to God, to see how He's given me this body. How far can we push it? What is capable? What are we capable of doing? And I actually just read Shackleton's story about endurance, the book called Endurance. But Shackleton, he's just this crazy adventurer. But it's like the epitome adventure story of like the Arctic and trying to cross. They got stuck in ice for a year and a half. These guys survived on the ice. It's insane. But that was so that he touches on this. I mean he embodied. He's the example of it. But yeah, so all to say that the paddle was something that helped me. Find a new dependence on God, and just to follow desire. Like my heart just longed to be out in that channel and see if I can cross it. And He sustained me. I mean, there's moments where I couldn't feel my hands or feet; they were numb and just totally fatigued. And that was So
26 miles on that's not.
Well, it was actually, so the idea was to like. I wanted to do a downwinder, so I wanted to go into mid-channel, and the idea was when the wind would pick up, and then it would blow me in, so I could you can almost ride the open water swells, but the wind never came that day, and so I ended up paddling like it was over 31 miles.
Wow.
Anyways, yeah, it was a really fun experience.
And so you did this paddle, you did a marathon, you started doing these things, and we're actually going to come back to this thing of doing hard things. You hit several things that actually I personally experienced, which I want to just talk about briefly before we go back into the hard things, is where it's physical, obviously, but you mentioned spiritual or emotional, mental, these different pieces that began to integrate together into what Pursuit is now. So it's an incredible story. And just personally, one of the reasons why in season 4, we're going after this thing of the pursuit, or looking at what we pursue, we find, what we pursue, we become, what we recognize are the pursuits of our life actually begin to shape and define us as men, as fathers, as husbands, as leaders. Like, these are significant things, and we're not passive. We're not victims where this is happening to us. And like you're talking about, like this journey that you went on, and I've personally experienced in doing the pursuit, is you can choose what you pursue. You're not a victim. We're not victims. We're not just hoping things are going to turn out. I mean, it may seem silly, but you don't just get lucky and get fit. You don't just, you have to have a choice. You have to choose to pursue something. And besides Zac being a friend, besides just loving these stories that have come out of it, very personally, I've kind of become an evangelist for the pursuit, because I'll just share a bit of my story, and then I want to dive into the why even deeper, into really this intentional thing that pursuit has become, because it's actually really changed my life. So just some backstory. Zac's a good friend of mine. I have this rule that I'll do anything that my friends are doing. So like, there's certain things that I'm like, I personally wouldn't do it if my friends weren't doing it, but I so value relationship, community. We talk about a lot of the strengths that come through community, through relationships, and I've just learned that over and over. So it's just a part of my life. It's part of one of the values. And so there's a handful of guys or friends that I'm like, if they're doing it, my answer will usually just be yes. Not because I want to, or I may not even be into it, but if my friends are doing it, then I'm interested, or I'll at least give it a try. And so Zac, you've been doing this for over 7 years, but in the last 2-3 years especially, you really begin to craft this. And there's actually, as we're going to talk about, several other chapters and people online joining. You're building this thing. But it just started out of your own journey, a group of guys you invited to join you, and it's turned into this beautiful thing. And so we're in San Diego. We just planted a church a little over a year ago, and we've been talking about this. Pursuit does a 90-day challenge. So this is going to be, Zac didn't ask me to do this. I actually, I believe in the pursuit intentionality and what you've created here, because I've encountered it, that there's this 90-day challenge that I want to tell you about, but also just kind of give it from my vantage point. Like, it's impacted my life dramatically. So I basically, we were talking about it. San Diego is not too far from Seal Beach. And so I was just like, hey, we talked about doing a chapter here in San Diego. And I got to be honest, so I'll let Zac explain more of the details online and stuff, but just to give you a little bit of framework, it is not just working out, but that is one of the pieces. So there's workout, there's book, there's diet, there's all these things, and we'll talk more about that. But one of the key components is Monday, Wednesday, Friday is a early morning workout. You start at 5:50, we do breath work, which we'll talk about, and then you go into an hour workout with stretching. It's like a HIIT workout, and then circle time where you're talking and things like that. So I'll kind of expose myself a little bit. I'm not a morning person. And the older I get, like I don't like sleep till 10. Like, I get up early, but I'm not at my prime in the morning. It takes me a while to get going. I get my coffee. If you ask my family or my kids, like, I'm a little bit of a slow starter. And so when we started talking about doing this, I'm like, I'm not sure I want to do that. Like, just to be completely honest, because it's a little counter to what my normal rhythms would be. But I personally, we're a year into planning a church. If you've started a business, or you've planted a church, or you've started something, like, it's the startup mode. The entrepreneurial startup is not easy. Like, it's a grind. There's a lot.
Specifically for church planning.
For church planning, especially. But have 3 girls entering into teenage. We moved to a new city. There's just a lot going on, and I just felt like, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. We're building a men's community here, a man camp community here in San Diego. And I'm like, well, this would be good for them. And I honestly just said, yeah, I'll do it because my friend's doing it. And I'd also been talking to my wife, praying, like, God, this is a lot. There's moments of being overwhelmed. I'd be laying in bed talking to my wife, like, this pace is not sustainable. Praying, talking, and we didn't have the answer. Like,
the life pace, the pace of like starting the church, moving here, new community,
everything,
all the responsibilities.
It's to be expected, but there are moments where, like, we can't do this, we can't keep at this. We're doing our best to adjust, but there are moments where in prayer or even conversation with my wife, I'm like, I don't know what the answer is, but I know this isn't sustainable. And so started this thing.
So the last thing you want to do is start something new.
Yeah, lead it, start something new. Yeah. But I'm like, you know what? Kind of like your story of I'm out of shape. I was out of rhythms, routines, both physically, spiritually, schedule, just all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so let's give it a shot. It has been, and like, you didn't ask me to say this, like, it has been transformative in my life for several reasons. And we'll come back to this, but sometimes God brings people or things into your life that you didn't expect, or you didn't maybe connect to being part of the answer of a need or something. Like, sometimes, it's like, I didn't even know I needed that. Yeah. And I won't talk much longer, but this 90-day challenge, this pursuit rhythm has transformed my schedule. So we have a word, whenever we get in a circle, we go around, say our name, how old we are, and we have a word for this season. For me, the word was rhythm. And not because I had one, because I needed one. It's been my prayer, God, I need a rhythm that's sustainable, not just for ministry or work, but for my life. And so we, like, these morning workouts, there's a diet element. Like, I've lost like 15 pounds. We joke around, like, with the guys on the beaches, we're getting killed, just like, just cheering each on through. It's like, we're getting shredded for Jesus, like, that's my goal. I might make a t-shirt and sell it. I'm not sure, but I'll just say this, like, the whole process, and you can explain more of it. I can't even fully probably do justice the impact, but what it has done for me is created a rhythm, both physically, like, there's been benefits, I feel better, but this season that I'm currently in has only gotten busier, and I find myself having margin. And, like, I'll just, when I get stressed, like many people, I get angry, or I can resort to frustration, and I find myself having extra grace for myself, for my kids, for my wife. Wow. Like, my wife has said to me, Zach, since you've been doing this, you're different. Like, wow. You have more patience. Dang. And I want to press into this because I don't think it's like, I don't think it's a mystery or it's like the lucky few that get it. Right. There are a few principles which we'll dive into that when you pursue the right things, when you go after hard things and actually don't run away or try to preserve seek comfort, you actually expand your capacity. Yeah. And so I personally so believe in this because it has impacted my marriage. I've been a better dad because, like, I'm sleeping better. I'm responding with patience because there's areas that I'm going after and pursuing. Physical health, spiritual health, like we go through a book, what I eat, like these things that are very small and may seem intangible, but when you combine them together, actually create capacity to give us perspective and strength into what we're going. So this is a long setup to this, but I just want to say thank you. And for you guys that are out there, at the end of this, like I said, this is a shameless plug because whether it's this or something similar, we as men need to pursue and go after hard things, not run away from it, but go after it.
Yeah, I think I'm really inspired by the observation of Melissa. Yeah. And to see to see change within the family, because it's like we said, the workout's almost a byproduct to the bigger thing. It's like you've developed strength. You have this inner strength now that you're bringing to your wife, you're bringing to your girls. Yeah. That your family's being blessed because of these disciplines. who wouldn't want a dad that has more grace, has more, it isn't reacting, is more responding. And I think that's what's my most favorite thing to hear is how it impacts the family unit.
Yeah.
How it, and even roommates at home. Like you have a number of guys
young
that are
adults,
just, are roommates, and their relationships are fortified because they're doing this hard thing and developing their souls and their spirit. But I have seen such massive results from you, and it's been so fun to hear that. But so can you share a little bit more about what Melissa, what your wife has
well, like
noticed?
I think it's just, this is fun. Again, this is not the main point, but we're getting in shape. Like I've lost, like I said, 15 pounds. We're working out, so you're gaining tone, muscle, things like that. And my girls noticed that, like, Dad, whoa, like you're getting some abs there. I'm like, I'm 43, so as an older man, you're like, I'll take that. Like that's gonna carry you for a while. But probably more so, it's just the capacity that's expanded, and I think it's connected to this. Franklin Covey talks about the big rocks. Like there's certain things that if you put your relationship with Jesus, physical health, like some of these things that are actually the most important things, but when we get busy, they actually can be the first things to go. And so then we're just the victims of our schedule, and we're just running. So for me as a pastor in ministry, it doesn't matter what, business, life, like parenting, all these things, we end up reacting and just chasing down these things, and then inside, both physically, spiritually, emotionally, we're starving, we're dying because we're not feeding the right things that give us true strength. Yeah. It's not just physical strength, it's a mental strength, a spiritual strength, emotional strength. And that's what I think my wife, and as we've talked about this, like in some ways it's not rocket science, it's just simple things like making sure some of these things are important, and it's like priority. Like we work out, whether it's raining, we keep going, and like this is actually part of the challenge. Like we just say we do hard things. Like this is one of the mantras that we're just saying over and over that you guys have modeled and created in this culture. Yeah. And so I don't, all I know is like it works, and this is why we're going after this thing is what we pursue, we find, we become, and actually we create as patterns and cultures and things in our life. So it's hard to fully unpack, but I love it. I do want to go into this thing of hard things because, and we can list out some of the practical things that are done, because I think sometimes we can overcomplicate this. Like, every year people make New Year's resolutions they never keep, or we set these goals that may seem lofty or never happen because it gets hard. Like there's no way around it.
And we don't have community to help us continue.
Yeah, so talk a little bit more about, because this is not only in your own life, but in this community and in Pursuit. Yeah. This is one of the phrases we use all the time. You write about it, but then there's actually really practical things that actually intentionally get put in that are hard. Yeah. to cause us to really embrace that.
Yeah. The word that comes to mind is control. Yeah. I feel like so much of my own angst, my own fear, my own anxiety is all rooted in the need to control things. Yeah. And when I'm not able to control, that's when the world falls apart. Yeah. And I fall apart. And when we feel most out of control is when circumstances come at us. Circumstances happen, life stuff, surprises, loss of job, or just a disappointing situation, and then all of a sudden we can spiral emotionally, and then that can cause all sorts of escapisms, and I think that's a problem with this comfort that we have, all the ways that we are able to escape temporarily, but it doesn't actually lead to anything positive. So, but what I was just thinking about was, as I was driving down here at 4 this morning, it started raining really hard, and it was like, in the mid 50s, and I just started smiling. I was
Come
like,
on.
how fun would it be if we were like, I was like, this is great. Like this, we're going to make memories together.
Yeah.
Like hammering on the beach in the rain when it's cold and you get muddy. And I think for me, it's just what God's awoken in my heart is how much joy actually comes from these like surprises. So when you things happen that are inconvenient, it's almost like now I look at it as like this opportunity for God to show up, or for something to be revealed in me or a friend or something else that we couldn't grasp if we didn't have that. So the rain and the cold is a silly example, but I think it's a practical one where it's, how many guys don't show up when they look at, when they look at the weather in the morning. If it's going to be raining, I don't want to be out there on the sand, and it's really uncomfortable, and it's cold, and it's muddy, and wet sand sucks, but those that do it, those are memories. It's like that. Those are the days that we reflect on and laugh about, and like, oh my gosh, remember how gnarly that hurricane was, and we still decided to try to play frisbee on, and But it like that. So taking that and thinking about, so I a quick like real life example of this is I bought a house February 2020, doubled my mortgage from what I was paying before. March 2020, pandemic hits. COVID hits. I lose half my income.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there, and I have this moment. It's like, okay, literally just got this house that we've been working so long to get into, and now I'm faced with a very real possibility of losing this thing. And none of us knew what was coming, but I'm sitting there in my garage just worrying my prayers, like, I'm totally out of control. God, oh my, what is gonna fear. And there's specifically a verse that says, do not worry your prayers.
Wow.
That I was quickly reminded of as I was doing it. And I'm just like sweating. I'm like, oh my gosh. And all of a sudden I have this image. I have this vision. I have this couch, and I see Jesus sitting next to me. And I just see him like look at me like this, like, you're so cute. Like you would at your 5-year-old toddler worrying about taxes.
Yeah.
Something so ridiculous that's like, come on, buddy, like, don't worry about that. You don't have to worry about that. And that's how Jesus was looking at me, what he was saying to me. And I just, like, I saw like the smirk on his face, and I just started busting up. Like the joy came over me, and I was like, I was like a lunatic alone in my garage, just laughing hysterically with this like mountain of a problem in front of me. Jesus by my side, being like, what are you sweating that for? Like, we're gonna get over that. Like, I can move that. In fact, actually, you can move that by saying it. So it, like, so I feel like it's this. So that was a really helpful, real life circumstance that I started off bad. I started off in sin, in fact, worrying. And then it like turned into this massive joy. In fact, I couldn't stop laughing. I had to check on my young son. So I go in the house and I'm like, hey, how you doing, buddy? Like trying to hold it together. And then he starts laughing. And we're just like, he doesn't know why he's laughing. I don't know why I'm laughing, but we're like, it was just like the joy of the Lord came over us, and it was a beautiful moment. But all to say, like, that's, I think, the result of these, like, hey, something hard, something inconvenient, something that isn't, what wasn't in our plan happens. It's like, okay, God, now what? Fast forward that story, 2020 was my best financial year I've ever had.
Come on.
So it's totally nuts, you just, the math doesn't make sense. The way God works doesn't make sense. And that's the adventure of the whole journey with him. And it starts with saying yes to this small, inconvenient workouts with guys, stepping into a cold shower for 2 minutes, saying no to alcohol for 90 days, doing the diet, all these small steps, all these small decisions translate into a muscle that you can access when real stuff happens, and then you can laugh at it.
Come on.
And you don't have to sweat it.
And you expand your capacity.
And your capacity expands.
Yeah.
Your margin expands, grace expands for for all sorts of stuff.
I mean, one of the best examples you can look at is like if you're working out, you take a weight, that resistance, as you lift, muscle grows, but it's growing from resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can do more, like you can lift more. And this is true not just in a physical capacity, but emotionally, spiritually. When we begin to, I love this example, but buffalo. So when a storm comes, buffalo, they herd together, and then instead of waiting, they actually go into the storm. And the philosophy is the quicker they go into it, not running away from it, the quicker they're going to get out of it. But there's a few things happening. They're actually together in community. There's like this band, but then there's also this intentionality. Like there's something hard. It's the storms in our life. We're going to go into it. We're not going to run away from it. And I think what you're talking about, unfortunately, many of us have, because of culture and society and whatever reasons, we actually avoid the hard things, the storms in our life, instead of with God, with community, going into it. So,
and that metaphor is beautiful, because if the buffalo decide to run away from the storm, avoid it, try to outrun it, they're in it longer because now it's just rolling with them, versus storm coming this way, they pass and it goes through quicker. God's design is everywhere if we just look.
So good. As we start to wrap up, I'm actually going to just set this up. We have a video from Pursuit that we want to show you guys. And then we're actually, as we're closing out this interview, going to just jump into some practical things, ways for you to jump into this community or maybe explore this. We have chapters in different places. You can join online. So I want to make sure people know how to do that, as well as just give you a little sneak peek so you get an idea even more so about what Pursuit is about. So check out this video.
We're swimming in a life of comfort, and I think it's costing us something. It's actually training us that life is supposed to be easy and convenient and comfortable. Life isn't easy. In fact, it's really hard. Jesus' offer is that we can have life and have it abundantly and fully. But guys, as we look around, are you seeing men full of life in church? Are you seeing men full of life in their work, in their homes? Are we living abundantly that Jesus promises? We need you to become a man who engages, a man who leans in, who leans forward, who says, yes, here I am, send me. Pursuit, practically speaking, is a 90-day challenge consisting of 3 workouts a week, a diet, and guided content to take the conversation deeper. These small things, we believe, are actually the things that will make you a man of consequence. We simply want to create a place where you can come and join us and learn how to become more than what you've experienced, what the world has said that you can be, to begin to recover our strength as men. We're developing a muscle that equips us to not avoid the hardship, because culture's been training us that we can, and it's not working. We stream this live every day, so you can join us at 6 a.m., but this is all available on demand. Guys, we are not meant to do life alone. And that's why we do this program with others, so that when it gets hard with the diet, when it gets hard to show up to do the workout, we have someone in our corner cheering us on. You're made for so much more. Join Pursuit 90 and begin to become the kind of man that takes life's challenges head on.
Well, hopefully that inspires you a little bit, challenges you, and intrigues you to look at maybe doing some intentional hard things, pursuing some hard things for growth in your life. So as we're wrapping up today, first of all, thank you so much for your yes, for sharing your own journey. My life has been significantly impacted, and I know many guys in our community and other guys that have joined. So I'm just stoked about what you're doing. I want to make sure guys just really practically know how they can jump into the Pursuit community. You've been building out stuff online. There's a website. So can you tell the guys just what, if they're interested, what the steps would be, or how they join Pursuit?
Yeah. So as Zach mentioned, we have a 90-day challenge, and those have starts and stops, and it's kind of an on-ramp with a beginning and an end. But the reality is we just keep going. So we call between the 90-day challenges day 91. Yeah. And so we like I said, we've been going for 7 years, and so you can really jump in whenever you want. We actually will have an app in our future that we're in development now, where whatever time zone you're in, wherever you're at, you can actually get a buddy or two and just start a 90-day challenge where you're at. So that'll be exciting. Then you're not limited to Pacific Coast and our schedules. Yeah. But the live is always available on demand, and so you can literally start today and jump right in. But honestly, we've tried to see if it works with just one person, and it does for a few. Some guys just have what it takes. They're the David Goggins out there that can just hammer, and they don't need anybody else. But by and large, you get the most out of this when you're in community. So my encouragement, if you're interested, is to grab a buddy or two. 3 chords are stronger than one. So it's if you can get 2 or 3 guys or more, and just commit. 3 days a week is all it is. It's 1 hour, and I'm telling you, there's a lot to overcome to say yes. Yeah. Zach shared, it took a while, but once he said yes, it's one of those intangibles that you can't. Yeah. We can talk about it all day long, but you just have to try it. So we actually have some free workout examples on our site, and if you sign up, you'll get those. But just to get a taste. But yeah, there's content driven, so there's a very intentional part at the end where we talk, and we bring a question of the day. We call it the QOD, and it's just a time for guys. We have 15 minutes, really concentrated, and we go deep fast. And that's actually a piece that we didn't touch on, but the physical element to the workout is we fatigue our bodies and we become vulnerable physically by failing, by falling down after the workout. And so you are physically vulnerable, which has opened up this really cool place where we can also be emotionally vulnerable with one another. So I've just found in being part of coffee men's groups and different things, this is just a fast track to be able to just have true relationship, true connection very quickly, where the walls are down and guys can just connect and be real. And we've walked with, you name it, the marriages that have failed, marriages that have come back, the whole thing. We're all going through stuff, and you were never meant to do it alone. And that's one of the biggest heartbeats of this, is that most dudes are alone and just isolated, and they don't know how to get out of it, because it's really easy to stay alone and secure and safe. But my ploy and encouragement is don't hide anymore. Find a community. It doesn't have to be Pursuit, but find a group of brothers just to do the hard stuff with. Do your own challenge. But yeah, there's endless opportunities out there to do hard stuff.
So good, yeah. So you can go to joinpursuit.co, which is the website where you can get the information that Zach's mentioning. Also, if you want to just check out Pursuit on Instagram, it's join_pursuit. Actually, no, it's Pursuit90. You just look up Pursuit on Instagram. You can see some examples of what's going on. But I want to encourage you, do hard things. Get in community and pay attention to what you're pursuing and going after. So thanks again, Zach, for hanging out with us. It's our prayer that as you hear some of these stories in season 4, that you get inspired to go after some new things, to pursue some new things, to grow. And the goal is that we live fully alive as men, that we're better husbands, friends, fathers, leaders, because we're not ignoring, isolating, but going after health. So thanks for listening to Man Camp. We always want to hear your stories, so you can email us at mancamp@jesusculture.com. Check us out at mancamp_podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your stories. Thank you for being a part of another season. We're stoked that we got video now. You can also still just listen via audio, but man, we pray that you get encouraged as you hear these stories, as you get challenged, maybe get some new ideas and models to go after this stuff. Pursue the things that God has called you to. So until the next episode, thanks for being a part of the Man Camp community.